How's it going, everybody? My name's Kevin and I live in that van with my two dogs, Barrett and Bella. And we travel this country bringing you footage along the way of the places that we see here in the United States. And today we're in my hometown of Maumee, Ohio, M-A-U-M-E-E, Ohio. And I'm gonna take you guys back into the neighborhoods back here to show you where I grew up and the houses that I grew up. But the first spot that I wanted to show you is this gigantic field right behind me. This is Ned Skelton Stadium. This is the home of the Toledo Mud Hens baseball team, or it used to be. Now it's in downtown Toledo, about 8 miles that way. This is a suburb called Maumee, Ohio. But this is one of my favorite spots that I had when I was growing up, because this field behind me, that was all a gigantic pool. It was like 3 pools in one big pool. They had a shallow end, they had a mid and shallow end, and then they had a deep end, which was right here. And that deep end had a 10-foot diving board, a 16-foot diving board, and the ones that are way high, the Olympic diving boards, the platforms. And I used to try to go up there and I would get scared every time, but I was only a little kid at the time. Now, as you can see behind me, there's no pool there anymore. They removed that, I think, 20 years ago or so, and now it's just a field for kids to play football. But this is Ned Skelton Stadium back here. I'm going to turn the camera around and show you guys what it looks like. I can't get too close because they got parking lot construction going on, but take a look. So there's the old stadium right there. You can almost see, I hope you guys can see, but there's the stadium lights. I went to many minor league baseball games as a kid in that stadium. So why don't you guys come with me? We're gonna go back into these neighborhoods back here and I'm gonna show you where I grew up. We moved here when I was about 5 years old from Arizona. So my parents bought a property, a house, and the property behind it, which was a vacant lot, and my dad built a house on that vacant lot right behind it. So let's go take a look. The next time I turn this camera on, we're gonna be in front of my childhood homes. And then we're gonna take you out, way out into the country, about 20 miles, because after I was 10 years old, we moved out to the country, and I'll take you guys there. Let's go. It figures there's a leaf blower going on when I'm shooting a video here, but that's just part of my life. But this is the house I grew up in until the age of 7 or 8. But my dad bought this house, my parents bought this house when we moved from Peoria, Arizona. In 1980, I believe, we lived here. But it's kind of cool to have this memory. Take a look, guys. Yep, so they bought this house. I used to put a ramp right here on the sidewalk and jump my BMX bike over it. But what's very interesting is if you see that house right behind it, that's the house my dad built. So I'm gonna get in the van. So that's 5 to 7. That's where I lived there, from 5 to 7. I'm gonna get in the van. I'm gonna drive down that road and we're gonna make a loop around to the house behind this one, because that's the house that my dad built all by himself. All he didn't do was dig the foundation and put down the concrete. Let's go for a ride. So that's the house right there my dad built. It used to look a little different because it had dark boards that would go down kind of like in a farm pattern. But as you can see, they changed it. Well, not as you guys can see because you don't know what it used to look like, but that's what it used to look like. What's funny about this road and where I used to live in this house is this house and then that one right there. Let me see if I can find it on my camera. That one right there were 1 out of 5 houses that used to be on this block. I used to be able to stand in my front yard, which is right here, and stare all the way down to the elementary school that I went to. Way down there, I could see it, and it's probably about a half a mile down the road you could see. But this is the road that I grew up on. There's the house that my dad built, and there's rumors that it's haunted. But this house was here, and this house was here right there, and that was it on this whole road. And now you can see that it's completely overfilled. What's funny is that all my friends and I used to ride our BMX bikes, and we would pop a wheelie on these curbs, and we would have a competition to see who could ride a wheelie the furthest up the driveway into the garage. And we broke a lot of bikes doing that. I believe in that flower pot right there. I buried some coins when I was a little kid. So there's probably some quarters and nickels sitting in that pot over there. But yeah, this is the street that I grew up on till the age of 10. So from 7 to 10, we lived here. And the next spot I'm gonna take you is 20 miles out into the country. It's called Swanton, Ohio. And my parents sold this house, bought I think 5 acres out there, but it was just surrounded by forests. So I'm gonna take you guys out there and I'm gonna show you the house that I grew up in from 10 to 18. Let's go. Okay, so here we are in Swanton, Ohio, and this is where I grew up from the age of 10 to 18. We're walking up onto the house that my parents bought after we moved from Maumee, Ohio. And what's interesting about this house is that when we bought it, there was no houses across the street at all. That was all, there was no pine trees or anything. That was all cornfields. Yeah, that was all cornfields. So I could see very, very far from our front window, which is right here. What's also interesting about this house is this house used to be yellow. When we bought it, it was yellow. My dad painted it probably 5 years before they sold it to sell it, and he painted it gray, kind of a light gray, and the brick was all red brick. And now, as you can see, it's a lighter side of brick. This tree right here that you guys see was about this tall to me when I lived here, so that's very interesting to see. And you can see that the backyard, there is just so much land here out in Swanton, Ohio. I'll flip the camera around. I don't know who lives here now, and I don't want to bug them with a camera shoving in their face, but I'm gonna flip the camera around when I walk back down here to show you guys what my front yard used to look like. So my bedroom used to be that window right there, and I used to stare out those windows as a kid during snowstorms to watch these fields completely covered in snow. Yeah, and I had a full-bred collie growing up, and this thing used to run the property. I used to run motocross bikes, big trails around the yard. My dad used to get so upset because I would leave trails, and you could see how far that goes back. So that's kind of a short story to you guys about where I grew up, the houses that I used to live in as a child. So what I'm gonna do to end the where I grew up part here is I'm gonna walk down this trail. This trail used to be a railroad track. And my full-bred collie, when I was a kid, used to chase trains. And she would get out and she would chase a train as far as she could, and then she'd come back. And this is the old train track right here. So I'm gonna walk down there because there's a bridge down there that I used to hang out quite a bit. And then just into the forest is a spot that I used to camp with all my friends when I was a kid many, many times. And I'm gonna see if I can, wait for a car to go by, I'm gonna see if I can get back into that spot where I used to camp as a kid. It's been 30 years since I've been back to that camping spot that I used to take all my friends back there, and we'd camp for days. So yeah, let's see if we can get back there, and I'll show you that bridge. We're coming up on it here in a second. So here's the bridge up here. None of these, obviously, none of these side rails, these walls were here when I was a kid. This was all train track. There's the house I grew up in right in the other side of those trees. There's the road. And my friends and I used to put pennies on the train track and go try to find the pennies that they smashed. But right on the other side of this bridge, to the left, is where we used to camp. So hopefully, it's probably a good 100 yards back into the forest. And we used to get there, that's my old house right there. We used to get there by walking through the backyard into the ravine over a creek, which there was trees that would fall down and create a bridge for us to actually go into the other side of the forest over the creek. And we're walking up on the creek now. Take a look. So yeah, I used to play on this bridge as a kid, and what's cool is down here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's a big cutout, and we build forts underneath the train track on that bridge. And here's the old creek, and you can see there's even logs still there or not still, but new ones, where they fall down over the creek so we can cross it. And we used to fish these creeks too, but all that was really in it for us to catch were frogs and carp. And there's no reason to fish for carp because you can't really eat them unless you're extremely desperate. But yeah, it's just a big marshland. Take a look. See all that standing water? And that's not even the creek. This standing water is just an area that collects and always has. Take a look. Yeah, there's all that standing water. But I do remember as a kid, and it might be just a recent rainstorm here that caused all this collection of water. But I remember as a kid that it wasn't nearly this bad. But during storms it would flood like it is now. But we are walking up. On the other side of here is the forest area where we used to camp. So I'm going to try to get back there and show you guys. Hopefully the spot is still there. It was a little cleared out, but all the trees were very, very tiny at the time. This is 30 years later, so I have no idea what it's going to look like. I'm not even sure if I can get back there because it's so overgrown right now. But I'll turn the camera back on when I get there. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get back there. And the reason why is it's just so majorly overgrown that I don't think I'm going to be able to get back there without getting ticks all over me and everything like that. There used to be, walkways that we made as kids that went all the way back. So one day in the future, if I'm here during the fall or in the winter time, or even very early spring before all this overgrowth happens, I promise that I'm going to go back there and find that camping spot and bring you guys along with me of where I used to camp with friends. But as of right now, it's just there's way too much foliage for me to get back there. All right, guys, I'm going to head into and boondock tonight the very first spot that I boondocked. So that's where I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to bring you guys there and show you my very first night living in a van, where that was, and a couple other spots in that area that I spent my first week sleeping every single night. So that'll be later on tonight, but in a few seconds for you guys. So we'll see you here soon. Good morning, everybody. Here's where I boondocked last night. The very first spot and the very first place that I've ever boondocked when I first moved into a van. It was New Year's Day of last year, and we are in a Walmart parking lot. So as you can see, it's very large. Many spots to park out here. So it's kind of cool to visit my first spot that I've ever parked at, living in a van full time. And that's what's going to close this video out, because I'm heading to West Virginia. I'm leaving there in a little while to go see Angie Hay, but I might do some exploring and some discovering over the next week or so before I go down there. I don't know yet. I'm going to talk with Travis and see what's going on. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video today and yesterday of all the places that I grew up here in Ohio, the houses that I spent my time in as a kid. So thanks guys for coming along, and we'll see you on the next one.
Slow down. Fireplace, do you